Hey everybody, welcome back. We are working on our next section of our story elements. So we did our story elements, we just finished plot maps, and now we are working on those ever so important characters. So in your reading notebook, you will need your reading notebook and a pencil once again. You're going to write down characters underneath your table of contents, and I am putting this on page 23. So characters goes on page 23. And as always, if you feel that Ms. Raggi is writing too fast, please feel free to hit pause and pause the video in order to catch up with your reading as best as you can, or the writing portion of this as best you can. All right, so this is page 19. We started off with story elements on page 20. We just did plot maps on page 21. And I am going to my very next blank page. This is page 22 for me. I'm going to mark it down here at the bottom. And then up at the top, I'm going to label this just the same as I did over in my table of contents. So I'm going to put the title as characters. And then once we do that, I'm going to flip this, and I've got spirals. If you have a composition notebook, it's really not going to matter too much to you, but I don't like having to write with those spirals in the way. So I'm going to actually flip it this direction, but you can flip it this way too. So it doesn't matter, but I am going to flip it long ways or horizontally. And I'm going to put a line across that red section right there, and then about halfway down I'm going to make it another section. All right, so we have two types of characters that we're talking about today. We have our what we call the major characters, and then we have what we call the minor characters. So that's what we're going to label over here is our major characters. Major, M-A-J-O-R. And major are the big important characters. So these are most important. Now, without these major characters, we would not have a story. So without them, there's nothing going on in there. We might have a couple of people wandering through, doing some things, but there's not really any story. There's not a problem. Nobody's trying to solve the problem that's going on. And we have some very special names that we call these major characters. The first one we're going to use is protagonist. Protagonist. And that is P-R-O-T-A-G, protag, on, ist, I-S-T, protagonist. And these are the main good guys. The main good characters. There can be more than one protagonist, but it's usually only one or two main characters. So Wonder Woman would be a protagonist. Captain America would be your protagonist. Who else? Batman, my favorite, would be the protagonist. So all of these characters are your main good characters, okay? And then you have your antagonist, A-N-T, A-G, sorry, I had to double check my spelling, O-N-I-S-T, antagonist. And these are your main bad characters. So your protagonist is your main good characters, your antagonist is your main bad characters. These are your evil characters. So Ares, the god of war in Wonder Woman, or Hydra in Captain America. Let's see, who else did I? Batman. Batman has a lot of antagonists. It just kind of depends on which one my nerd is showing. I'm sorry. So, for example, the Joker would be one of Batman's main antagonists. So one of the guys he's going against. And we would want to say, and we're going to add, it is most important. So it's any character that the story follows or is trying to solve the problem. So any character that the story is following, so if Miss Roggy went to the store and bought all that she needed to have a hamburger cookout, the protagonist or the major character in that story would be Miss Roggy because I'm the one the story is following. For example, and we're going to use our example from our story, the Among the Hidden. Sorry, almost forgot what book we were reading. So our example would be Luke or Jen, and even the population police. We don't really see the population police in the story. We don't really get introduced to them, but they're the main bad characters. They're the main antagonists, the people that Luke and Jen are trying to fight against, is that population police right there. Okay, so those are our major characters. And outside of our major characters, we also have our minor characters. Major is big, minor is teeny tiny. Doesn't mean that the characters are really small. It just means that they have a small role and they only show up occasionally. So they show up occasionally. That means not very often. And they don't have a main role. Do not have a main role. So they don't really help the story moving forward. And our example from Among the Hidden would be Matthew. I'm going to spell that with 2 T's. Matthew and Mark. Matthew and Mark are both really short-lived characters. I mean, we only see them occasionally when they come in to play with Luke, or Luke is looking down on the truck going by with the pigs in it, and he sees Matthew and Mark sitting in the truck with the hogs. So this would be an example of a really good minor character, someone who doesn't show up very often in the story. All right, so those are your notes on major and minor characters. Please make sure you have these written down and are ready to discuss them for our next class.